Getting to the lake bed was the first of the big goals of the week at Hammers. The next day after Jeremy and I got to the lake bed, the truck pulled in, and that was hooray. And being able to open the back door, being able to see my Jeep sitting there on the tail of the trailer and fire it up and put it in reverse, and the battery wasn't dead, and the fuel was flowing, and it didn't have a puddle of coolant under it, and all the things that could go wrong on just a brand new vehicle. It fired up, it went in gear, and it came out of the trailer, and the sun hit the aluminum armor, and it just looked freaking cool. It felt cool. From getting it out of the trailer to getting to the start line was a lot more work than I anticipated, and I should have known better, because we did the same thing with the JL the year before, where it wasn't ready. But the race doesn't care if you're ready; it's time to race. So we had, we had test driven the LJ a cumulative total of about a mile before it went in the trailer. Our shop is on a little dead end street, and I drove back and forth a couple times, and that was the test drive that it got. It wasn't ready. It hadn't been tested. It hadn't really been driven. I hadn't even sat in it with my race suit on yet. It was a brand new vehicle that got finished, dumped in the trailer, and then brought to the lake bed. And so the first 3 days of testing at Hammers, it got towed back to our little makeshift paddocks 3 times, which was defeating. So getting the car to the starting line, I went off on a really big tangent. We did a ton of work on the car trying to get it there and trying to get through all the new car blues of just a brand new build. And truthfully, we did really good at it. We just didn't find the one thing that stopped us from getting to the finish line. And that sucks.
KOH requires that all race cars go through tech inspection, and they check, there's just a lot of stuff. Mostly safety stuff, technical stuff, make sure your cage is up to spec, your roof, all that kind of stuff, because we want the race to be as safe as it could possibly be. So we took our car to tech a couple days before the race, as pretty standard, and it failed. It failed for a couple of things.
We were still struggling with the fuel delivery issues and understanding what happened there, and just throwing heaps of parts at it. So I towed the Jeep to tech. And in tech, we got a couple guys together, we pushed it up onto the scale. And the Jeep was way lighter than we anticipated. It weighed 4,360 pounds. So I could have gone to lighter roll cage structure, but we didn't, because we didn't ever figure it was going to be that light. Anyway, so they validate the weight, they approve the roll cage structure, I got it running long enough to throw the master kill switch and show that the Jeep shuts off the way it's supposed to. They validate parking brake, all that stuff. But there was a couple things that I did with the car that they didn't like.
They didn't like the way our seatbelt harnesses were mounted in one spot, for example. So we had to fix that. And then little things like, you need emergency triangles if you broke down out there on course. You got to be able to put the triangle out, warn the other drivers. We had an issue with our fuel tank vent hose for rollover purposes. that needs to be routed a certain way, and it needs to exit the vehicle a certain way, and ours just didn't exit the right way. So little things like that. Some was known to us that we were going to fail for it, some wasn't, but we wanted to go ahead and get that thing through most of tech, including our safety gear, our fire suits, our helmets, socks, all that kind of stuff, to get that checked off so that we knew what we had to work with. Time was getting short. We didn't have a ton of time left. So we wanted to get that checked so we had a known list of, hey man, we got to go back and fix this, this, and this, so we can get this thing back to tech to get that thing past the next day before racing. After we finished tech, which is basically focused on the vehicle itself, certain vehicle systems, roll cages, that kind of thing. Contingency is next, and contingency is always the day before a given race. So for UTVs, it's the day before their race. For the Everyman Challenge, that's the day before our race, and then of course Unlimited, the day before that race. And what contingency is, it serves two purposes. There's certain stations in contingency, and race officials are checking certain things. They're checking our equipment, our fire suits, make sure we've got them, our shoes, our helmets, that kind of stuff is a station. Another station is making sure that we have our first aid kit, making sure we have our emergency triangles, that kind of thing. So we go through those 4 stations. But while you're doing that, contingency is basically a snaked line through Hammertown, which is where all the spectators are at. So the spectators are able to come, see the cars, meet the drivers, meet the companies, and just really kind of get as close to the cars as possible, which is pretty unique to Ultra4, I think. I mean, other race series do it, but not in this way. And I think it's pretty interesting. And I kind of like doing it. You get to see the other cars, you get to see the other drivers, and sometimes it's a slow process, but it is a vital process. And I think it's fun and kind of cool that we get to involve the spectators in it so much as well.
Nervousness and the anxiety of that morning of the race is massive.
Coming up to the line, you're coming up to the line to line up to race, in some cases an hour plus before you're actually going. King of the Hammers goes off 2 cars at a time, depending on your class, could be every 30 seconds, every minute. So you're just sitting there and you're moving pretty slowly. So it's really not advisable to kind of get in the jitters and really get nervous. So the kind of standing joke was, I think I got caught kind of taking a nap, I think the morning of the race. I just wanted to be as calm as possible. I knew it was coming. As soon as you hit that gas pedal and you take off that line, it's an adrenaline dump. So if you know that, you don't want to get too crazy with it, but, just try to relax as much as possible. But, you're crazy if you don't think there's some nerves going on and you're nervous, and, you just try to overcome that. And really the conversations between Adam and I were pretty mundane.
When Doug and I actually got to the starting line, I looked at Doug and I said, Doug, I got to pee again. And he goes, we don't have time. Doug, I got to pee. And he said, we don't have time. He goes, the green flag is right there. We're next. And so when you watch the race from the start, from the green flag through the far side of Turkey Claw, I was sitting in the car yelling at Doug I had to pee. But we went as fast as we could simply because when I get past Turkey Claw, there's a place I can pull off and go pee. And we passed a lot of cars in that section. But the morning of the race was just kind of surreal, kind of, there's moments of just sheer joy that we're finally going to do this. And then there are moments of, just nerves and anxiety of, holy shit, we're about to go do this. And it's a bizarre mixture that I hope everyone experiences at some point in their life. Not necessarily running hammers, but that feeling of that morning, I hope people see and feel and appreciate, because it's you feel alive. We made a bunch of passes in there, and I've tried to figure out how many. But when there's 3 different classes on course, it's tough to figure that out. A lot of cars were broken in that first 3 miles or so. We passed a bunch of moving cars in that time. Doug was all over the horn and all over the push to pass button, and guys were giving up spots, and we were making up ground. Dropping into Turkey Claw, we could see the leaders of 4600, which was cool. It was the first time all day that we had seen the leaders. I say all day, we're only 5 minutes into this thing, but even at the starting line, you couldn't, we were so far back, we couldn't see those guys. We made our way through Turkey Claw. I had to pee, so found a spot off to the left side of the course, got out, was taking a leak, and realized that we had already broken a shock. Never felt it from the driver's seat, but at some point I ripped the reservoir off of its mounting bracket on the driver's side front shock, and the reservoir must have gotten into a tire, the hose fitting was broken, we had a dead shock. it's life, that's racing, these things happen. Over the last few months since Hammers, I've totally changed the hose routing and changed that bracket. Life is good now, but it's what we had to deal with. So, went through the tool bag, found a hose clamp, got it secured up out of the way, got back in the car, we started making ground again.
We were feeling pretty good about it, coming out of Turkey Call, making passes, 14, 15 miles in, making really good passes, until we didn't feel good about it anymore, when the car decided to rear its fuel problems once again on us.
We'd spent all week trying to source this problem, and the night before the race, we really thought we had it, and we started having the issue again. So we drove the car for a ways trying to nurse it, at least to like remote pit 1, where we have access to all the tools and we've got a team of guys there, and we can dig into it with support. But it quit running before we got there. So we found a spot off to the side of the course and started trying to figure out what's what. And it's all kind of a blur, but found what we thought to be an issue. Sealed the tank back up. We had the whole tank open on course, and I was half out of my race suit so I could reach inside the tank and not coat my race suit in fuel. We got it all back together, and we hopped back in and we took off, and the car was running great. So we thought we had it solved, and we didn't stop in remote pit 1. We drove right through because the car's running great and we are behind on time. We lost a lot of time between me having to pee and the broken shock and then the fuel stop. And so we drove through, car was running great, and a couple miles after remote pit 1, it started breaking up again. And so we tried to get it through that section, but knew that it wasn't making enough power to, really do what we wanted. So we pulled off again and kind of scratched and picked at our brains until we could figure out what was the issue. And on that stop, we actually figured out what the issue was. That was the first time all week that we actually solved the problem. And we found that fitting on the bulkhead fitting on the tank was failed. So in an attempt to finish the race, we took a whole bunch of Gorilla Tape and we taped that fitting to that hose and sealed it, so that it couldn't pull air, it could only pull fuel up the hose. And we knew that in time the Gorilla Tape's adhesive would die from the fuel, so we zip tied it all up in there so that the fuel pickup wouldn't pull it in. Anyway, long story short, we jumped back in, the car was running amazing. While we were sitting there getting it all buttoned back up, some course officials came by and said, what's going on? You guys have been here for a really long time. And we said, yeah, we know it's broken, but we're fixing it. And he said, you guys are the last car on course that's still in the race. And that was probably demotivating. Everyone behind us was out. So whatever, we're not giving up. So we got back in the car, and it was running probably the best it had all week. It was absolutely screaming. We were flying through that section on the way into Cougar Buttes. And just as we got into Cougar Buttes, it started doing it again. And at that point, we knew what the issue was. But if the adhesive on the tape failed that quickly, there wasn't anything we were going to do to put it back together enough to get to remote pit 1 and stay in any kind of contention for the race. We hadn't given up yet. So we drove into Cougar Buttes and tried to just nurse the Jeep through. If we could keep it running long enough to get back to remote pit 1, we could take this thing apart, put it back together the right way. You know, the guys we had out there were, you know, fantastic guys. And we had more fuel there. So really, even if it's something we couldn't fix there, we could top the fuel tank all the way off, get back to mains and fix it there. You know, we had a plan. And we tried to nurse the Jeep through Cougar Buttes, and we just couldn't make enough power given the fuel pressure we were able to create to get up some of the climbs in Cougar Buttes. So we sat in the middle of the race course, which normally you wouldn't do, but given we already knew nobody was behind us, and had a conversation about what we wanted to do. And the realization or the consensus was that it made more sense to throw in the towel and not blow up that motor and not, you know, hurt that car, than it did to push the car and keep running it without fuel pressure and, you know, ruin what it was just to, in the end, still not finish the race. You know, there was no way we were getting it around the rest of lap 1, let alone lap 2. So it was kind of heartbreaking. It was kind of heartbreaking to put that much time and effort into a vehicle, build it, and not get to the finish. You know, it's kind of the nature of the beast in King of the Hammers. You know, it's King of the Hammers is an attrition race. You know, it's designed to take cars out, and it got us. You know, hopefully next year I can sit in front of this camera and say it didn't get us this year, but for 2022 it did.
Going forward, we're gonna race. You know, King of the Hammers 2022. It might have been our first, but it's definitely not going to be our last. We already planning on being there again next year. We have corrected our issues. The car is getting better and better. You know, every time I talk to Adam, he's, you know, improve this, improve that, fix this, fix that. So, you know, we've got another race or two here in 2022. We're going to be racing at AOP in Tennessee in June. Probably planning on racing again sometime later in the fall. And, you know, just getting seat time. You know, we need to be in that car together as much as possible because it's all about, you know, KOH is our Super Bowl. You know, that is the Super Bowl for Ultra4 Racing. And, you know, we want to be there. We want to be competitive. And, you know, we want to finish that race, and we want to keep doing that and keep improving and keep moving forward. And the only way to do that is to keep racing. So we're going to keep racing.